I never imagined the people I loved most would one day lock me out of my own home. But grief makes monsters of us all. Or maybe it simply reveals who we've always been. It all began the week after Robert's funeral. My husband of 50 years was gone, and the house that once echoed with laughter now felt unbearably still. The scent of his aftershave still lingered in the hallway. His slippers were still beside our bed. Every night I reached for him and found only cold sheets. Our 2 sons, Daniel and Marcus, came around that first week. They brought flowers, murmured soft condolences, and talked about helping me sort things out. At first, I thought it was kindness. I was grateful they cared enough to take charge. But now, looking back, I see how quickly concern turned into calculation. Daniel, the eldest, had inherited his father's sharp mind and his ambition. Marcus was quieter, more easygoing, but easily led. Together, they began to organize everything: papers, accounts, even my clothes. "Mom," Daniel said one morning, stepping into the kitchen where I was making coffee, "we need to talk about the company." "The company?" I asked, blinking. "Honey, your father's gone. I don't have the energy for—" He interrupted gently. Too gently. "That's exactly why. Dad didn't leave a proper succession plan. The board needs clarity. Marcus and I are ready to take over." "Take over what, exactly? You both already have shares." "Yes," Daniel said, glancing at Marcus, "but it's complicated. Dad's will left a portion of ownership to you. Half, actually." I nodded. Robert had always been fair. "That sounds right, Daniel." As if explaining to a child. "Mom, the company needs direction. Investors will panic if they think an elderly widow is suddenly in control." The words stung more than I expected. Elderly widow. "I'm not trying to control anything," I said. "I just want to do what your father intended." "That's the problem," Marcus muttered under his breath. "What's that supposed to mean?" He looked away. Daniel stepped forward. "It means we're trying to protect what Dad built." "You don't understand the business anymore, Mom. It's changed." Changed. The word echoed in my mind long after they left that day. That evening I sat in Robert's old study, the one that still smelled faintly of tobacco and leather, and stared at the family portrait on the wall. Robert had insisted we take it for our 40th anniversary, him in his favorite navy suit, me in a blue dress he'd bought on a trip to Paris, Daniel and Marcus standing tall behind us. We looked so happy then, so proud. I wondered if Robert had known how easily love could be replaced by greed. The following week, they brought in a lawyer, their lawyer, not mine, and papers began appearing on my dining table. "Just sign here, Mom," Daniel said, smiling that same polite smile that once charmed investors. "It's just a transfer of management authority. You'll still own everything, technically, but it'll let us make decisions faster." I hesitated. The pages were dense, filled with legal jargon. I'd like to have someone look at it. Daniel's smile thinned. "There's no need for that. We're family." But Robert had always said, the moment someone says, "Trust me," check your pockets. So I didn't sign. And that's when their patience started to crumble. A few days later, I woke to silence. The house felt different, emptier. I walked downstairs and saw boxes piled near the door. My clothes, my books, my framed photographs. "What is this?" I called out. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Mom, you need rest. The house is too big for you now. Marcus and I have decided to move you into Brookside Manor. It's a nice facility. Private rooms, gardens, staffed 24/7. You'll be comfortable." "Brookside?" My voice trembled. "That's a nursing home." He sighed. "It's a retirement community. You'll like it there. You won't have to worry about anything anymore." I took a step back, gripping the edge of the table. "You don't get to decide that for me." Marcus avoided my eyes. "It's already done, Mom. We've talked to the management. They have your room ready." I looked between them, my sons, my babies, the boys I'd carried, nursed, and prayed for every night. "You can't do this!" Daniel's face hardened. "It's for your own good." And before I could protest again, he handed me a folder. Inside were transfer documents, not just for the company, but the house, the accounts, even the car. My world blurred. "You forged my signature?" Daniel didn't answer. Marcus looked away, tears glistening in his eyes. I don't remember much after that. Only the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears, the distant hum of the moving truck outside, and the cold metal of the doorknob as they gently guided me out. When the door closed behind me, I felt something inside me snap, but not in despair and clarity. They thought I was helpless. They thought I'd lost everything, but there was something they didn't know. Robert had always been a step ahead, and he'd left me something far more valuable than money or property, a secret that could bring the entire company to its knees. I just didn't know it yet. Brookside Manor was peaceful, too peaceful. The air always smelled faintly of lavender and disinfectant. There were fountains in the courtyard, flowers in perfect rows, and nurses who smiled too much. Everyone spoke softly, as if we were all made of fragile glass. I hated it. The first few days passed in a blur. I sat by the window, watching the trees sway. I thought about Robert, about the company we built from nothing, starting with a single workshop in our garage and ending with a chain of factories and hundreds of employees. He had been proud of what we'd created, but even prouder of the family we raised. And now that family had turned its back on me. I still couldn't believe it. The signatures, the papers, the gentle way Daniel had guided me out of the house like I was a stranger. Every time I replayed it, my chest tightened. But I refused to cry. Not anymore. I had cried enough. On my third morning at Brookside, one of the nurses, a kind woman named Rose, brought me my mail. "A letter for you, Mrs. Brooks," she said. "It looks old. Must have been delayed." Old indeed. The envelope was yellowed, the handwriting instantly familiar. Robert's. My heart skipped. The postmark date was 6 months before his death. With trembling hands, I opened it. "My dearest Antonia, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I didn't want to burden you with worry while I was alive, but there's something you need to know. The company isn't what it seems, and neither are our sons. I've seen greed in Daniel's eyes for years. He hides it well, but I know him. He wants control. Marcus follows him out of loyalty, not malice, but loyalty can be just as dangerous. That's why I made a change. One nobody knows about. Half of the company belongs to you, yes, but I've also created a silent clause in the corporate charter. Without your signature, no sale, merger, or transfer can ever be legally binding. Even if they forge papers, it won't stand. Keep this letter safe. There's a second document, the true ownership certificate, hidden in the place where you first said yes to me. Love always, Robert." I sat there frozen, the paper trembling between my fingers. The place where I first said yes to him? It took me a moment to remember. Our engagement, 48 years ago. It was in the old rose garden behind our first house, the small brick cottage we'd rented before success found us. The cottage was still ours. We had kept it as a rental property for sentimental reasons. My sons never cared about it. It wasn't grand enough for them. My pulse quickened. If Robert had hidden something there, it might still be waiting. That evening, while the other residents played cards and watched television, I slipped quietly into my room and called a taxi. I still had my pension account, small, but enough for emergencies. I withdrew a little cash and waited until dawn to leave. The sun was just rising when I reached the old neighborhood. The cottage looked tired but familiar. Ivy crawling up the bricks, the old oak tree bending toward the roof. My heart ached at the sight. The rose garden was overgrown now. The gate creaked as I pushed it open. I walked to the spot where Robert had knelt all those years ago, holding a simple gold ring and a trembling smile. "Say yes," he'd whispered. "And I'll spend my life making you proud." I knelt on the same ground, brushing away dry leaves. And then I saw it. A small patch of disturbed soil near the stone bench. My hands shook as I dug with my fingers until I hit something hard. A small metal box, rusted but intact. Inside, wrapped in wax paper, was another envelope. I opened it carefully. To my wife, the only woman I've ever trusted. If you're reading this, then what I feared has happened. Enclosed is the true certificate of ownership for 51% of the company. Your name, your signature, notarized and sealed. Only you and the registrar know it exists. Without your consent, no transaction is legal. Keep it safe. If they betray you, use it. Not for revenge, but for justice. Love, Robert. Tears blurred my vision. Justice, he'd said. But right now all I felt was heartbreak. I held the document close, feeling the weight of both paper and love. Robert had seen this coming. He'd known his sons would turn. He'd planned to protect me even from beyond the grave. I spent the night at a nearby motel, unable to sleep. My mind was racing. What should I do? Should I confront Daniel and Marcus? Call a lawyer? Go to the authorities? No, not yet. They believed I was weak. Let them think that. Let them grow comfortable in their stolen victory. Then I would act. 2 days later, Daniel called me for the first time since sending me to Brookside. His voice was sharp, annoyed, almost annoyed. "Mom, are you all right there? The staff said you left." I smiled faintly. "Oh, yes. I just needed some air." "You can't just wander off. Do you realize—" "Daniel," I interrupted, my tone calm but firm. "How's the company?" There was a pause. "Fine." "Why?" "Just wondering. You and Marcus must be busy." Another pause, longer this time. I could almost hear the suspicion forming. "Why are you asking?" "No reason," I said lightly. "I was just thinking how proud your father would be. Of all of us." He hung up without another word, and that's when I knew he was nervous. Maybe not sure why yet, but he sensed something. I put the phone down and smiled to myself. For the first time since Robert's death, I felt alive again. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I sat at the small desk in my motel room, staring at Robert's letter and the company ownership certificate. The papers felt like armor, fragile-looking, yet powerful enough to bring down an empire. I called my late husband's old friend, Mr. Whitaker, the family lawyer who'd handled our estate for decades. He was in his late 70s now, retired, but sharp as ever. When he answered, his gravelly voice softened. "Antonia, my goodness, I didn't expect to hear from you." "I'm sorry for disturbing you, Whit," I said, "but I think Robert left me something important." The silence on the other end stretched. Then he sighed. "I was wondering when you'd find it. Robert told me you might call one day." My heart thudded. "Then it's true? The ownership clause? The silent charter?" "Yes," he confirmed. "He made me swear not to reveal it unless you discovered it yourself. He said it was the only way to protect you from being manipulated." Tears welled in my eyes. "They've already manipulated me, Whit. They threw me out of my own home." His tone hardened. "Then it's time you remind them who they're dealing with. Bring me the documents. I'll verify and register them with the state before anyone can contest them." I hesitated. Should I tell Daniel and Marcus? "Not yet," Whit said. "Let them believe they've won. People who think they've won get careless." That afternoon, I boarded a bus back to the city. It was a long, uncomfortable ride, but the motion gave me time to think. I kept replaying my sons' faces, Daniel's cold calculation, Marcus's nervous loyalty. I still couldn't decide which hurt more, the betrayal or the silence that followed it. When I arrived at Whitaker's old downtown office, the brass letters on the frosted glass door still read, "Whitaker and Sons, Legal Counsel." though the sons had long since retired. He looked older than I remembered, his hair pure silver, his cane propped beside the desk. But his eyes were bright and alert. He read Robert's letters carefully, adjusting his glasses. "He thought of everything," he murmured. "These documents are airtight. Once I refile them with the new state system, you'll have full legal authority again." "How long will that take?" I asked. "A week, maybe 2. But don't worry. I'll make sure it's discreet." I nodded. "Thank you, Whit." He smiled faintly. "Robert always said you were the strong one, Antonia." I never believed him until now. That night, I returned quietly to Brookside Manor. The nurses looked relieved to see me, and I played my part perfectly, polite, apologetic, even a little forgetful. The residents resumed their gossip. The staff resumed their smiles. No one suspected a thing. Except Daniel. He showed up the next morning, unannounced, as usual, in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my entire room. He stood in the doorway, frowning. "You're back," he said, like it was an accusation. "Yes," I said pleasantly. "Did you miss me?" His eyes narrowed. "Where did you go?" "Oh, just for a walk down memory lane," I replied. "I visited the old cottage." That made him pause. "The cottage? Why?" "Because that's where your father proposed to me," I said softly. "I wanted to remember something pure." He studied me for a moment. "You shouldn't wander around like that, Mom. It's not safe." "I'll be fine, Daniel," I said. "I'm old, not fragile." But the way he looked at me told me he didn't believe that anymore. He was suspicious now, and that meant my timing had to be perfect. A week later, Whitaker called. "It's done," he said. "You're officially in control." "I've registered your authority with the Business Commission. They'll get the confirmation soon." My heart raced. "Thank you." "One more thing," he added. "Robert also left a clause in his will that activates now, a sealed account in your name. It's not huge, but enough to start something new, if you want." "Something new," I whispered. The words tasted strange. I hadn't thought about starting anything new in years. 2 days later, I put on my best emerald green dress, the one Robert loved, and called Daniel. "Sweetheart," I said, sugar in my voice. "I'd like to visit the company. Just to see how things are running, for your father's memory." There was a, "That's unexpected. Are you sure you're up for it?" "Oh, yes," I said. "I'm stronger than I look." He reluctantly agreed. When I walked into the company headquarters for the first time since Robert's funeral, the employees stared in surprise. Some whispered, others smiled faintly, pity maybe. But I held my head high. I was Mrs. Brooks, co-founder, and they would remember that. Daniel met me in the lobby with Marcus trailing behind. "Mom," Daniel said stiffly, "we really don't have time for—" "Oh, nonsense," I interrupted, waving a hand. "I'm just here to observe. Please, continue your work." Marcus looked uneasy. "Maybe we should show her the new prototype, Daniel." "Yes," I said brightly. "Show me what my family has built." They exchanged glances but led me into the boardroom. On the wall was a large photo of Robert and me, taken decades ago during the company's early days. I smiled up at it. "He'd be proud," I said quietly, though perhaps not of everything. Daniel crossed his arms. "What's that supposed to mean?" I turned to face him fully. "You'll find out soon enough." His jaw clenched. "Mom." But before he could continue, his assistant burst into the room, pale and flustered. "Sir, there's been a notice from the Business Commission. It says Mrs. Brooks' authorization has been updated. She's listed as the controlling owner." Silence fell like a hammer. Daniel's face drained of color. "What?" Marcus blinked, confused. "That can't be." "Oh, but it can," I said calmly, taking a folded paper from my purse. "And it is. Your father made sure of it. You see, dears, you never really had control. You only thought you did. Daniel's composure cracked for the first time. You had this planned? I smiled. No, your father did. I just followed his instructions. He slammed his hand on the table. You can't just waltz in here and take over. Actually, I said sweetly, that's exactly what I can do. Marcus looked between us, torn. Mom, please, we didn't mean to. Oh, I know, Marcus, I said softly. You never mean to. You just follow your brother, don't you? The younger one's eyes filled with shame. I turned to the assistant. Please tell legal I'll need access to all current contracts. I'll be reviewing them myself. Daniel's voice was cold. What are you planning to do? I looked straight into his eyes. I'm planning to clean house. For the first time in months, I slept peacefully that night. Robert's letter rested on the nightstand beside me, the paper worn and soft from how often I'd read it. I could almost hear his voice. Not revenge, my love. Justice. I whispered back into the dark. Justice is coming. I woke up before dawn, the nursing home still quiet except for the hum of the hallway lights. My mind was heavy from what I'd read in Robert's documents. He had left me not just shares, but control. Control I hadn't realized I still had. For years, I'd let my sons make all the decisions at Brooks Manufacturing, thinking I was just a retired woman living off memories. But Robert had quietly ensured I remained a major shareholder, with final approval rights on any company sale. They had no idea. That morning, I called an old family friend, Martin Hale, Robert's former business partner. He sounded surprised to hear from me. Antonia, it's been years, he said warmly. I told him everything. About the funeral, the eviction, the betrayal. Silence filled the line for a moment, then Martin said, Your husband always knew you were the only one who could protect his legacy. By noon, Martin was sitting across from me in the nursing home cafeteria. He laid out a plan. A legal way to exercise my rights as majority shareholder. You can sell your shares to anyone you wish, he explained. Even to their competitor, if that's what you want. I hesitated. Would Robert have wanted revenge? I asked softly. Martin smiled. He wanted fairness, Antonia. He wanted you respected. That night I stared at the ceiling in my small room, thinking about my sons. The boys I had raised, fed, and loved. They had turned me into a stranger. But I couldn't let them trample everything Robert and I built. So I made my decision. 2 days later, I met Martin's associate from Rutherford Industries, Brooks Manufacturing's biggest rival. We discussed terms, and when I signed the papers, I felt no guilt. Just peace. The deal gave me enough to live comfortably and guaranteed that Robert's company would continue. Just not under the control of those who betrayed me. A week later, my sons came storming into the nursing home, red-faced and panicked. Mom, what did you do? Ethan yelled. You can't sell to them, Daniel added, almost shaking. I sipped my tea calmly. Boys, I said, I did exactly what your father would have wanted, made sure the company stayed in good hands. Ethan clenched his fists. You ruined us! No, I replied quietly. You ruined yourselves when you forgot what family meant. As they stormed out, I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I wasn't just Robert's widow or their mother. I was Antonia Brooks, and I had taken my life back. Weeks passed quietly after the sale. The newspapers called it the most unexpected corporate move of the year. But in my small nursing home room, peace finally settled in. I spent my mornings tending to the little garden by the window, daisies, Robert's favorite. One morning, a letter arrived. It was from Rutherford Industries. They thanked me for the partnership and mentioned how they planned to preserve the Brooks legacy, the factory name, the workers, even the same community programs Robert had started. My eyes welled up. He would have been proud. Then came another envelope, this time for my sons. Their handwriting was shaky, their words stiff. They asked to meet, to talk things over. I agreed. When they arrived, they looked smaller somehow, not the arrogant men who once threw me out, but lost boys again. Daniel's voice cracked as he said, "Mom, we were wrong." Ethan added, "We didn't realize what we had." I smiled gently. "You didn't lose the company because of me," I said. "You lost it because you forgot compassion, the one thing your father built everything on." They both wept quietly. I reached for their hands. "It's not too late," I whispered. "Start again, with honesty this time." As they left, I looked at the fading sunlight through the window and felt Robert beside me. His voice echoed softly in my heart, softly, "Good morning, my love." I closed my eyes and smiled. The world had taken much from me, but it could never take what truly mattered, my dignity, my peace, and the legacy of love Robert and I built together. And that, I realized, was the inheritance I never lost.